Hey guys, Mike here. Welcome back to another video on the channel. Thought I'd do a Q&A episode. It's been a long time since I did a Q&A, and I've had some questions from people via email and also on the channel as well. I'm in a very beautiful location though, and sadly you're not going to be able to see it. It's incredibly windy today, too windy to be outside with the camera. But I had a subscriber email me some time ago, and I thought it was a really good email, and it was really important. And you know what, I've lost the email in all honesty, but I remember it very well, and I remember exactly what it was about and pretty much what it said. The email from the gentleman was as follows. He basically goes out into the wilderness fully kitted up. He's got his pack, he's got his sleep gear, he's got food, he's got everything. You know, you imagine him, he's dressed for the occasion. He's out hiking into the wilderness. He goes into a really beautiful location. He sets up a camp, he makes a fire, he makes food. He spends the day there, as you do when you're out camping and you're spending time with yourself out in the wilderness. It's a good thing to do, it's healthy. But then the sun begins to go down, and day begins to transform into night. And when it gets to that point, just before the transformation of day and night, he feels fear. Fight or flight, I guess you could call it. But fear gets the better of him. He packs all of his equipment up and he leaves, and he gets in his truck and he goes home. And he hasn't brought himself to do an overnighter. He may have in the 2 months gone when he emailed me, but as I know, he hasn't brought himself to do an overnighter in the wilderness because he's afraid. And I think that's perfectly normal. And to have fear is a perfectly healthy thing. It's a real feeling, and it's there to guide you. And you should listen to it, but you should also face it if it's irrational, and that's an important thing in life. I think the human world we live in is an engineered world with systems and processes to keep all the gears turning, and when something goes wrong in that world, we're obviously shocked and horrified by it, and it should never have happened because those systems are in place to make sure that that sort of stuff doesn't happen. And despite that world feeling completely separate from Mother Nature, it's totally dependent on it. But if we look at nature, nature is nothing like the human world we live in. Nature is a completely different world, and it's up to you, really, to educate yourself, to prepare yourself, to train yourself, and get into a good mental state before you go into nature, so that you can eliminate potential problems that might happen, that might be your general fears, really. And I think the thing to question first is, what is it you're afraid of? You need to face your fear, you need to bring it out of you, and you need to sort of think, what is it I'm afraid of? And maybe it's something as simple as slipping over on a wet tree root and falling on your knife, or on the ice as well, and falling on your knife. That can happen, it has happened, and it will happen again, and people will die in the wilderness of that, I imagine. Very few, I'm sure, but I imagine it has happened before. And you know, that's a genuine fear, having a fatal injury with one of your cutting tools. Well, that's an easy thing to remedy, and you can really minimise having the chances of having a major problem. Again, experience, that comes with time. But in the meantime, if you have little experience, you educate yourself with knowledge, you practice and train, and you conduct yourself based upon that training correctly in this wilderness environment, and you will eliminate the chances of having a problem with a knife and having a fatal injury. There is always a chance, but it's about minimising that risk, and that should give you comfort, and that should kind of diffuse that fear, allow it to kind of just blow away in the wind. You know, that fear leaves you, and you feel, yeah, I have the knowledge, I have the training and the preparation, and I'm going to prepare myself. You know, I'm going to go out there and I'm not going to be worried about cutting myself with my knife. And a good thing to do as well when you're working out in the wilderness to eliminate injuries and problems is to be present in the moment. And that's something that we all suffer with, I think, being present in the moment. A lot of people spend their life in their head dreaming and doing all of this kind of stuff, and they don't actually take time to look around them. And that's kind of what being in the wilderness teaches you to do. It teaches you to slow down, to take a step back, to breathe, and just to look at the environment around you, and concentrate and focus and be present on the jobs at hand. Because going out and wild camping is really just a series of jobs, just a series of manual jobs. You go out there, you walk, you hike. It's physical, which is good for you obviously, and good for your mind too. You're in beautiful nature, which is good for your mind. You're taking in nature. You start doing physical jobs. You start preparing wood. You put up your camp. You make a fire. You cook food. Some people might think, what the hell would you want to do that for? Just sounds boring. But to people who want to be in nature, it's exactly the opposite. It is being present in the moment, and that's really what nature is for me. It allows me to wind back, to ground myself, to slow down, and to just kind of be present in these jobs I'm doing, and take it all in. And it's a magical thing, and it really teaches you a lot about yourself. And being alone as well and doing it, you know, it's a really wonderful thing. So rational fears, going back to that, are very valid things to have. You might have rational fears about predators. You know, predators in the wilderness coming into your camp area. Again, it's exactly the same as using the knife. You know, you can educate yourself, you can conduct yourself and prepare yourself to be in that situation. You can make sure that predators aren't drawn into your camp area by having your latrine and all your food and your washing station far out away from your camp. And you can even do reconnaissance as well, which is a really important thing, and it's a really good way of fighting fear of the unknown, is going to the area you're going to camp before you go and camp there, maybe weeks before, a week before, 2 weeks before. Reconnaissance is 75% of what I do out here in the wilderness. When you see all the photos I'm putting up of Instagram of me in the Jeep and, you know, me walking around, I'm just doing I'm just recceing areas. I'm just expanding my Gaia GPS. I'm just putting coordinates in. I'm looking at the landscape. I'm looking at resources. I'm looking at the snow for animal tracks. I'm just taking it all in. I'm just absorbing the landscape around me and looking at, and it gives me a bit of a visual memory and a bit of a recall of pictures of locations, essentially. So you can do a lot of preparation in your mind and help the strength of your mind by doing recon, coming to areas and getting to know them, because that is another major thing. It's the unknown. When I'm going out to do an overnighter, well, is there going to be dry wood? What happens if it rains? Oh, is there going to be this? How am I going to make the fire? Should I take cotton wool balls and Vaseline because I don't know what tinders are going to be around? Should I take a lighter? I don't know what the weather's going to be like. Is it windy there? Does it flood when it gets wet and the rain kind of pulls up? And shall I take my hammock? You know, all these things that start smashing through your mind. Well, you can put all that to rest by just going there and having a look at it, and just spend a day there, make a fire, look around. Go there in different weather conditions if you're really anxious about it. And then when you get to a level where experience starts to tip the scale of the unknown and kind of what you have to do and all these questions, experience takes over, and you don't need to kind of worry so much, because you go there, you have your kit, you've done it a million times, and you can just start doing it, and you adapt, and you become more adaptable to different situations, to different weather conditions. But there's also irrational fears as well, things that you dream up in your mind, fantasies, imagining kind of strange creatures out in the forest, or aliens abducting you while you're out solo camping because you're easy pickings, Bigfoot, some kind of thing like the Blair Witch kind of hunting you down and shaking trees and making baby noises. You know, that there are kind of films out there that influence us, and they imprint in our minds, and they kind of cause our mind to run wild, you know, and they program us almost. It's a form of programming, a form of brainwashing, I think. And you have to remember that can only be overcome by empowering yourself mentally. Being mentally strong is really 80% of it, and the rest of it is just conducting yourself properly and the preparation and training we talked about. I mean, irrational fears are just irrational fears, and you should just remember them and just label them as irrational fears, and that's why they're irrational. because they're irrational. You know, and they shouldn't be. You shouldn't be thinking about Bigfoot and all of those things. If you do go out wild camping and Bigfoot comes into camp, well, flipping out, you were really unlucky. And you know, if you live to tell the tale, you know, hopefully you should, you know, you can bring it to light. But you know that the chances of these things happening, they're sort of just off the spectrum. You know, they won't happen to you. I've been out camping so many times on my own. These things have never happened to me. As I say, I've seen freaky things in the time I've been out camping, but all of them have been explainable. Just having a tea break. A lot of talking. And videos like this are quite challenging to do. There's a lot of talking. You never know how they're really going until you get home and watch them, and you realise you're just talking a load of rubbish, basically. But this is such a variable thing to talk about, because people live in all different areas of the world who are watching this video. People are in Australia, they're in Germany, they're in the UK, they're in North America, they're in South America. They're everywhere. So there are different risk factors. There are different genuine rational fears that you might have about going out and being in the wilderness. Every environment has its own risks, essentially, that you need to prepare yourself for. You need to prepare yourself for if you don't have the experience. And if you're afraid of going out and doing an overnighter, then I'm imagining your experience is fairly limited. Although you may spend a great deal of time out in the wilderness in the daytime, you just may not camp there. There are millions of people who work, live and spend their life in the wilderness that don't necessarily overnight in it all the time. Like here in Sweden, very few people camp here. I mean, I'm probably one of the only idiots who do a lot of camping here in this part of in this town anyway. But all year round anyway. You know, because, you know, I enjoy it. And that comes to another thing of when you look at the videos I'm doing, you know, and I'm out camping, like let's take the last one I did where I'm with Monts and we stayed in the cabin because it was really cold, you know, like -20 and below at night, which for Monts, my dog, just, he can't hack that kind of temperature at all. So, you know, that video, I don't know, maybe it was about half an hour. They're normally around half an hour long, but I was out from 10 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon the following day, you know, including all of the hiking, the filming. And it gets dark at around about 2 o'clock in the afternoon at that time of year in that part of December. So you've got to think, like, that's, you saw half an hour of it, but what did I do in all the other hours I was out in the wilderness? Well, there's a massive amount of downtime when you solo camp. Massive amount of downtime, and that isn't a problem. Downtime is precisely why I come out here and do overnighters, to kind of kick everything back a gear or three, and kind of, as we talked about, be present in the moment and kind of observe the wilderness and interact with it and do manual tasks like cutting wood and things, and kind of, you know, all these kind of processes that come with camping. You know, it's an enjoyable process, and it's about ultimately being comfortable in this beautiful environment and kind of just taking it all in, you know, and learning about yourself. And I think that's a really important reason of why you should go out and do a solo camp and overcome your fears, whether they're rational or irrational, although we've talked about how to overcome rational fears to a degree. I mean, being alone with yourself in nature really, to me, defines the ultimate feeling of loneliness. You know, you only really have yourself to depend on, and dependency is such a massive thing that encompasses everybody's lives these days. Everybody is so dependent on each other. They're dependent on their phones, they're dependent on calling people, and dependent on them being with their phones so they can answer, and you're dependent on someone coming collecting you or doing this or getting food and everything. It's just kind of like our society is like the ultimate in dependency, and I think when something isn't available to some people, there's uproar because it should be. And I've always been an extremely independent person, personally, and that happened when I was a child, and I started hunting and going out and overnighting on my own with my air rifle in my early teens. And you know, and I quickly learned a lot about myself. You know, I went through a period of my life where I didn't have too many friends, and you know, a lot of my good mates moved away, and well, they weren't interested in the same thing as me. And I spent sort of a period of time doing a lot of overnighting, a lot of hunting on my own, kind of speaking to farmers and things, and just camping out. And I didn't sort of think about Jimmy Savile and all that stuff back then, and you know, whether he was lurking in the bushes like waiting for me to slip up or put the safety catch on. You know, I was just kind of more concerned about monsters and stuff back then, and weird stuff, and actually kind of badgers, weirdly enough. I always remember this one place that I used to camp. There was so many badgers there, and I was always freaking out that the badgers would kind of come and get me. But you know, it was irrational, really, and you know, the badgers are fine, but I was in a tent, so it was okay. So the tent gave me kind of a false sense of security, as did the air rifle, because I had 4 walls around me and a roof, and I had this air rifle that was flipping useless, really, in a way. But all of that stuff gave me a sense of security, and I really enjoyed those times of my life, spending time on my own, and I learnt a lot about myself. And I think it's such a valuable thing to do, coming out in the wilderness and spending time alone. And I always put my phone on airplane mode when I come out into the wilderness, apart from now when I'm obviously got a pregnant wife at home that could call me at any moment. So you know, it's really important to me that when I come out into the wilderness, I'm not disturbed by other people, and you know, because it's really, for me, it's kind of like it's my temple, the wilderness. It's like my temple. It's where I go to kind of be with myself, to be with my mind, to be with my problems, to be with my fears, my strengths, my weaknesses, to face who I am, you know, and be with myself. And as a result, doing that for many years has made me someone I really like. You know, I like myself, and I'm happy with who I am. I still have a lot of problems, you know, I still suffer from anxiety and all these sorts of things with certain issues, but I face these problems daily, and I try to better myself. And I think I've got going out and wild camping and being in the wilderness to thank for that. It's kind of like my meditation, really, as to learn about who I am. And when you're in the wilderness and you've got all this downtime, tens and tens of hours of downtime, you are forced to face who you are. And if you're not going to, you know, if you're going to put your mobile phone away and genuinely be in that environment, then it's going to be really good for you. It's a really good thing to do for who you are, and it really helps you in life. It helps me. And I hope this video has helped those of you out there who might have some reservations about coming out and solo camping. You know, I can't promise you'll go out and be okay, you know, and that you won't get killed by a serial killer or something like that. But it's very unlikely. And if you train yourself, you prepare yourself, you educate yourself, you conduct yourself correctly when you're out here, and before you come to locations, do some recce's, do some reconnaissance. As I say, that's like 75% of what I do, or 80%. I can't remember the percentage I said earlier. But that is the majority of what I do. It just reconnaissance, you know, and reconnaissance will give you familiarity for a location. It will make you feel more homely to a location, and you can prepare an area where you can do a solo overnighter. And if it's your first one, there's no harm in doing that. And as experience takes over in time, you won't need to do that anymore. You know, and you'll be able to adapt much easier to whatever nature throws at you, you know, within reason, of course. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and there are videos to come on the channel. Stay tuned, as the last video I did was a video about my winter sleep system. I'm going out soon to do an overnighter, but you know, the first few weeks of the baby being born, you know, I'm going to be with Meg, and I'm obviously taking a couple of weeks off. You know, I get a couple of weeks off with Meg, and yeah, I'll just be with her, and then after that things will just, you know, start to kind of hopefully will be in a routine and things will be a bit more normal for me work wise. And obviously filming is part of my job really, as well as leather work and the graphic design work I do. So you know, I will keep it going, although it will be harder for me to sort of do more regular stuff, but you know, I'll still keep the videos going. So yeah, 300,000 subscribers. I think we've just hit 300,000 subscribers almost on the channel. So if you're new to the channel and you're watching this is a bit of an unusual video obviously, but you can backtrack through the video catalogue and have a look at the stuff I've done, and welcome to the channel and thanks for subscribing. You know, 300,000 subscribers. You guys know that I do a lot of leather work and do a lot of leather work commissions for people. Well, I've prepared a few things once again for a giveaway, as I did with 200,000 subscribers. So that'll be coming up in a few weeks. There'll be a giveaway and a chance to win some handmade leather items that me and Megan have made, because she does help me as she's been pregnant. She's just been down in the workshop every day slaving away. I don't mind that because it helps me out, but you know, I do tell her every day she doesn't have to do that, but she seems to want to. So you know, stay tuned, that's coming up. And yeah, thanks for watching. So I hope you enjoyed this video, I hope it helped. If you've got any suggestions for people who might be struggling, write them below, write your experiences below, potentially write some questions below for me. You know, you can ask me anything, but you know, I had a question once: do penguins have knees? You know, maybe questions like that I probably won't pick for the Q&A, but you know, it's a valid question and I still don't know the answer. So you know, take care of yourself and I'll see you soon in another video. Thanks again. Oh.